Ah, the Roman Empire, where to begin? A tiny city grows into one of the biggest superpowers the world has ever seen. Imagine if New York City decided one day, hey, why not conquer France, Egypt, and maybe Britain too while we're at it? That's basically Rome's story. But how did they pull it off? Well, grab your popcorn and let's take a whirlwind tour of Roman history, where egos were bigger than their empire and the roads led. Everywhere. Our story kicks off in 753 BCE, give or take a few years, when Romulus and Remus, twin brothers raised by a wolf, because obviously parenting options were limited back then, decide to start a city. But like all brothers, they couldn't agree on who got the bigger room. Sorry, who got to be in charge. So naturally, Romulus killed Remus and named the city after himself. Lesson learned. Never argue with your siblings over property. Rome started off as a kingdom, but the kings got a little too full of themselves. Surprise, surprise. So in 509 BCE, the Romans kicked out their last king, Tarquin the Proud, which honestly sounds like a fitting name for a guy who didn't see his firing coming. This set the stage for the Roman Republic, which was a bit like democracy, but with a lot more stabbing. Rome's early republic days were a bit like that awkward teenage phase, full of growth spurts and identity crises. The Romans were constantly fighting their neighbors, kind of like the kid on the block who never gets invited to play, but always shows up anyway. Over time, they developed a knack for war and diplomacy, growing their influence and territory. Then came the Punic Wars, Rome's three-part action movie against Carthage, their arch-nemesis. Think of it as Rome's version of Fast and Furious, but with elephants. The star villain, Hannibal, decided to invade Italy by crossing the Alps, with war elephants, mind you, because why not? It didn't go great for Rome at first, but like in every good sequel, they made a comeback. By the Third Punic War, Rome had totally had it, so they wiped Carthage off the map. Literally. Now Rome was the big kid on the Mediterranean bloc, which was both good and bad. Good, they were rich and powerful. Bad. They were rich and powerful, which meant corruption, inequality, and a lot of senators sitting around, scheming. Spoiler alert. This doesn't end well. The rise of Julius Caesar. Enter Julius Caesar, Rome's version of a rock star general. This guy was so popular, he made political speeches that had more fans than the Colosseum on game day. Caesar was off conquering Gaul, modern France, and throwing victory parties like it was 49 BCE, but the Senate got worried that Caesar's victory lap was turning into a power grab, so they told him to give up his army. Caesar, of course, responded like any rational person would, by starting a civil war. He crossed the Rubicon River, basically saying, let's do this, and marched on Rome. After winning, Caesar declared himself dictator for life, mind you, because apparently for a while wasn't ambitious enough. But his career didn't last long. In 44 BCE, a group of senators, probably tired of all the dictator for life talk, stabbed him 23 times. And that's how Caesar learned the hard way that et tu, Brute, is Latin for not cool, dude. The rise of Augustus and the Roman Empire. Now, you'd think Caesar's death might have brought back the Republic, but nope. It kicked off more civil wars because Rome's idea of problem-solving involved swords, not debates. Eventually, Caesar's grandnephew Octavian came out on top. He was smart, avoided being stabbed, and in 27 BCE he took on the title Augustus, which is Latin for I'm the boss now. Augustus was more of a behind-the-scenes ruler, like the emperor who wouldn't plaster his face on every building. Under him, Rome entered its glory days, known as the Pax Romana, or Roman peace. Of course, peace is relative when you've just conquered most of the known world, but it was a chill 200 years for Rome standards. Augustus reformed pretty much everything, from the military to the postal service. Yep, Rome had mailmen. Augustus made sure the empire was so well-oiled, it'd last long after his reign. Well, mostly. The height of the Roman Empire. By the 2nd century CE, Rome was living its best life. The empire stretched from Britain to Egypt, Spain to Mesopotamia. Like if it were a pizza, it'd be an XXL with extra cheese. Rome's emperors, like Trajan and Hadrian, kept things running smoothly. Hadrian even built a wall in Britain, basically to say, nope, we're good here, thanks. It's a bit like building a fence to keep out the neighbors you don't want to talk to. The Romans loved building things, roads, aqueducts, temples, you name it. If it wasn't nailed down, they'd build it. And their legal system. Oh, that's the OG, the blueprint for law and order. They even came up with the idea that you're innocent until proven guilty, which is a pretty good deal unless you're a gladiator in the Colosseum. Then you're guilty of getting eaten by a lion. The decline of the Roman Empire. But all good things must come to an end, and by the 3rd century CE, Rome was starting to feel more dad bod than Olympian god. There were economic problems, too many emperors fighting over the throne, and barbarians at the gates. When your emperor is assassinated every other week, you know you've got issues. In 284 CE, Emperor Diocletian decided, this empire is way too big for one guy, and split it into Eastern and Western Roman empires. kind of like a celebrity couple trying to consciously uncouple. Diocletian also introduced price controls to stop inflation, because when in doubt, blame the economy. Then came Constantine, the emperor who legalized Christianity, probably because he was tired of people fighting over who worshipped what. He also moved the capital to Byzantium and renamed it Constantinople, which, to be honest, is a bit of a name flex. It's like naming a city after yourself and expecting everyone to say it's cool. The fall of the Western Roman Empire. Meanwhile, the Western Empire was having a midlife crisis. In 410 CE, Rome was sacked by the Visigoths, which is like saying your home got broken into, but instead of taking your TV, they burned the house down. Then, in 476 CE, the final emperor, Romulus Augustulus, was kicked off the throne by a barbarian chieftain named Odoacer, who decided Rome's ruling days were over. Thus, the Western Roman Empire was officially out of business. But hey, the Eastern Roman Empire, later called the Byzantine Empire, kept the lights on for another 1,000 years, so there's that. And there you have it. Rome went from wolf-raised brothers, to republic, to empire, to a tourist destination with awesome ruins. It's a story of ambition, power, and way too many emperors named Augustus. But the influence of the Roman Empire is everywhere today, whether it's our laws, our architecture, or our love of gladiator movies. Rome wasn't built in a day, but it sure crumbled quickly. So if you ever feel like your life is falling apart, just remember, at least you didn't lose an empire to guys named Alaric and Odoacer.